Today, we're talking to Eva.
What do you think?
Oh, it's good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is.
actually it reminds me of Australia.
Good, I'm glad.
Going to the cinema in Australia.
Yeah, because you get them in a
Getting
big...
a huge pencil.
And you're like sitting there going, I have to go.
So we're going to start with a quick fire.
Fine.
Just to get us into the space. So, nickname.
Me? Just Eva.
Just Eva.
Just Eva.
Pen or pencil?
Pen. I think pen, yeah.
Spring or autumn?
Spring.
Tea or coffee?
Neither.
Lark or night owl?
Night owl, 100%.
Sweet or savory?
Sweet.
Forest or desert?
Forest.
Abstract or figurative?
Abstract.
Or minimalist or maximalist?
Minimalist.
And if anything, are you reading anything currently?
I'm currently reading Ursula Le Guin's work. And I've just finished like Another Country and some other bits as well. I've done a lot of reading this year and last year.
So we're here in your studio or your artist residence studio. Do you listen to anything when you walk in here? And if so, what do you listen to?
It kind of depends. So I'm often listening, I almost always listen to audiobooks unless the work really needs my attention, in which I move to this playlist where I only have upbeat music, which is like almost exclusively pop.
And when you're listening to your pop, what is your routine in this space? Like, how do you get started?
I've moved around studios so much between residencies and like space. I think the way I move depends on the space. So it's been different since I've been here. I normally come in, I'll like have a bit of a snack, look through some notes I've made, and then I pull out whatever I brought to use that day. So a lot of the practice is informed by what I arrive to the studio with. So today it's like the parts on the temporary table. I'll be playing with those later. Or I was thinking about glitter recently and that'll start it. There's nothing sort of consistent in terms of how I start making the work. It just sort of happens. I'll be responding to things I've seen in my own space and then sort of goes on from there.
And how long do you spend in the space? Like, do you have to first get into it when you arrive, or do you feel like you get in, you're here, and then you spend a few hours here? How does it work? Is it 9 to 5 for you?
Yeah, I try and treat it like, I actually normally think of myself more as a worker than coming in as an artist, because I feel like the work is asking me to do things, so I work for it. So I'll be in here from like 9 or 10 until 6 or later if things are going well. Unless there's a private view, I try and stay later than that. You're
here in Soho at the moment. How are you finding it?
It's really nice to be so central, but my studio is in Camden, so it doesn't feel like there's only a 20-minute walk between the two of them. This space is amazing. It's so much more room than I've ever had prior, so that is great. Conversely, there is no supermarkets around here, and I really don't like that. But other than that, it's been amazing.
You're from Australia,
yes.
So but you're living in London. You have done for
6 years.
6 years now. Why London? And are you going to stay?
Well, I think yes. I love London. I really do. I think that's largely because of the art scene here and like the queer community here is phenomenal. And I feel really at home here, and I have an amazing network of friends, so I can't imagine that going anywhere. I think the gallery culture is really exciting. And yeah, I moved here because of where I studied. So I got into St. Martin's, but only applied to St. Martin's because I didn't know there were other art schools. So that's kind of largely dictated my life, is I'll decide to do something, go, oh yeah, I'll do that. And then I don't really think about it much, but it just has happened to end very well for me. So
how do you feel about me being here or us being here today? Like, do you like people coming in or into your space, or not really?
I do if there's warning. I really don't like when people pop in to say hi. I think that's because I come in here and I have things to do. Like, I liked when I got up this morning knowing this was on. It sort of starts my day. It's good to have, sometimes people coming as like a deadline. It keeps you sort of engaged because it's really easy to lose a sense of time or space when you're in here.
Losing that sense of time in this space.
Yeah.
How do you create? What's your process? Because you're then so focused on your work. How do you find that you start?
Often with the stretches actually, so whatever surface I'm thinking about or making, so I might build them So I'll be bringing in timbers or things I found along the road and start manufacturing these frames, which I'll normally line up in the space. But I might make those 6 to 12 months in advance, and then the actual process of the work can be really quick. So if there's a material that's like I found really engaging or something I'm working with at that time, I might then make 3 works in a day. But the process of building the frame always comes first, and there seems to be delay. But then the work doesn't ever really feel like it's done when it's in the studio, because I find it so activated by the architecture of the space it's in. So even with works that I've been hanging off this structure, that largely has come about because I'm wanting to see how it interacts and how sort of like painting or it as an object can exist in the space I'm working in. So I will just be finding materials or things I've been looking at and connecting them. And then there's sort of this language that brings together a variety of things I'm looking at like into being. And that's when the work starts to do something. That's when it's really working. Prior to that.
You're quite influenced by, would you say you're quite influenced by your environment? Or?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's also what I find exciting about showing work or making work for spaces is how big is that gap? What can I fit in a 15 centimeter gap? What is the texture of it? What belongs in there? Where can the work exist so there isn't a seam between the space and the work? Where does it belong? And
so does that mean that do you mean in your studio space, or is that kind of, or are you looking when you're going to do an exhibition that you're looking at that space? Yeah,
I think a bit of both, because there was a point where I was making folding paintings in my studio, but that was because I didn't have room to make the size I wanted to make. So the paintings had to fold. So a lot of the existence of the work comes from necessity. And then that will often be, if I know I have an exhibition coming up, then the work has to exist to fit in that space. So they're things I'm constantly negotiating. In this studio at the moment, I'm getting to expand and pull things apart from a knot in a way I don't normally get to. So I'm seeing things sort of drawn out. Whereas normally it's almost hard to say because it's constantly like this.
So just looking at your works, you were talking about found objects like this little table right here. Where do you find your works? How do you decide what works to bring in and what pieces to bring into your works?
I think that's probably when you asked me earlier where I start with the work, I probably should have said it was like buying materials, and I think I single-handedly fund eBay and Vinted as well, actually, recently. So with the work, like the materials I find, I get really specific about language choices. So my grandfather was a truck driver, a freelance truck driver. My father trained as a mechanic. My uncles all work in the pits, they're all in mining. My other grandfather was an electrician. My other grandfather, waterworks. So all of these industries. So my family's very trade orientated, and most people in my family are very handy. So a lot of the words and ideas around the materials I work with are sort of appropriated from them. I think I like to pretend that I did the same thing they do, because if I hadn't have gone into art, I would have gone into trades. So a lot of the time, I think I'm performing this sort of role as a tradesman in a way. So I will find these words, really very specific trade words around hydraulics, engines, particularly military. So that's ripstop military nylon. So it's a surplus. So they're really fine denier, which is like the weight of fabric. The materials, I'll be looking at like, well, how would you install that in a space? How many tons can that hold? How many kilos? So most things are over machined. I want to use materials for an incorrect purpose that are over engineered. Like how wrong can I be with the material I'm using? How far will that go? How long how much do I have to remove? Is it still a painting? Where is it going? It keeps going. So eBay, I'll find the maps and then I'll keep finding them and searching for them, the reverse searching for them. It just keeps feeding itself, and now I have a perfectly curated algorithm, and it all comes to me. People call me, they drop off materials. My friend dropped me off a parachute the other day. A lot of materials are gifted to me, so I have a very thoughtful community of people around me. But I just get very specific. At the moment it was like metal rivets, so I had to learn how to use a riveting gun and then sort of just generate forward and inflatables and whatever that is.
In that process, how do you then know when a work's done?
That is a question you could spend a really long time thinking about. I think I don't always know. Sometimes it's leaving work and coming back to it. Sometimes it's a deadline. I really enjoy that. I'm like, well, this is what it is. It has to be. But I kind of like the idea that painting might be in flux, because what if the work comes back from somewhere or leaves the studio and it needs a change? We treat, like artworks are treated so often as something like archival and finished and final. But a lot of the work I make, although I've done a lot of research into how those materials age, they're going to change. And I find that really engaging and exciting. So not seeing the work as an endpoint, but as something that drives process is more interesting to me. So I'm probably more invested in the process of making it and the questions the work is asking me, because I haven't yet made work where I've gone, that's it. And I don't think I ever will, because I wouldn't be making work anymore if I did. But that's the thing. So I can't even say if I've ever finished work and been like, it has it. It might have had something I thought was it prior, but not now. Yeah.
And when you're in that moment where you're like, okay, I think it might have it, and I'm gonna show it to the world. Do you think about your audience when you're making it and you got it, or is it just totally how do you find it?
I think most artists are selfish and they're lying if they tell you otherwise. No one goes into art for the people. Like, you don't make work and go, this is for the people. Like, you're making it for you. Like, the work I make is for me. I exist in this little world I built around me where I'm bringing in things I really love and am interested in and don't understand. Largely, I don't understand. That's my universe. So when people see it, they're just getting an insight into something I enjoy doing, or I'm really interested or rigorous about. It only really matters my feelings about it. It's just brilliant when someone connects with it in a way that I do. That's just a bonus.
When you're met with being in an exhibition, you're in the art world and you're out there in a show and you're hoping that people are connecting with it. How have you found that going into bring your work to the wider world?
I think I like the performance of the art world a lot. I really enjoy this. If you're sort of referring to like exhibition openings and the experience of seeing it in space, I sort of think about that in two ways. It's really performative, and I love the performance of being someone else. I love being at a PV and pretending to relate to experiences that are totally different to my own.
Why is that?
How often do you get to make up different characters as an adult? Like, it's a performance. When I am making work and the work is has been themed around trucking, I will go in a racing suit, because when I made the work, I was thinking about being a truck driver, and I am that. That's wonderful. It's like, why wouldn't? It's so fun and silly, but very serious about it. It's seriously silly. And I've been thinking a lot about space recently. So there's sort of a performance of that, of me almost feeling like I'm training myself to qualify for some type of journey or travel, just for me in the studio, that then sometimes I share when I show work.
And do you find then, on the wider scale, that the art world is performative, or would you not go that far?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's full of really big egos and big personalities, and I don't think many people are when I'm teaching, a conversation I'm constantly having with students is, you choose to be in an institution or in the art world because you want to, not because anyone told you should do it. No one's parents go, yes, my child is going to art school, like, this is amazing. So I think there's a conviction and an authenticity in people wanting to be surrounded by art. I'm specifically referring to artists and gallerists that actually love work. That's magic. Like, that's incredible. But beyond that, I think a lot of it is highly performative, because it's so much geared in sales and like ideas around what is good work. But the conversations you have with artists at those openings or being in someone else's studio are so spectacular, because like us sitting now, this work might change dramatically and it's sort of in this shifting state. And there's something really that I can only describe as being sort of magic and like omnipresent about like a space of making.
And how do you then navigate that kind of, that world of performance and where you think big egos and people not really understanding the work or caring about the work?
I think it's really significant to surround yourself with the opinions of people that really matter. I've had some really incredible studio visits with some amazing people that I felt really respected the space, and when I've wanted real criticism, have been able to give it to me in a way that's respectful. And I think a lot of my trust in people in the art industry come around when I feel they're being vulnerable with me. I feel I can return that and sort of express what I don't understand about the work. So I think a lot of that is just trial and error, because there's definitely times that doesn't work out well.
in regard to social media and the use of it in the art world today. And I just would love to hear your thoughts on that, about the impact rather that it had.
Yeah, I mean, my first shows, I think, from memory, came through Instagram. So it was really helpful for me. I found a lot of open calls. It's like for younger artists, it's really helpful when you're looking at hashtags for stuff people have missed. My first grants, also through Instagram. There's a lot that has been really productive, but I found as people contact me for projects, I don't rely on it in the same way I used to. And in a really boring businessy way, it has sold a lot of my work. And people don't like to talk about the reality of how they're selling, but even now a lot of my work still sells through Instagram. And I don't mind talking about that because I feel like people perform a lot and they act as if things are going really well. But if Instagram is the reason I'm still selling work in a recession when the art market is tanking in a way it hasn't since 2008, I'm grateful for it. There's a lot of problems with it, recent censorship issues. I've got a lot of issues with Meta that are affecting friends of mine a lot more than myself, but it definitely has served a role, and I'd sort of be lying if I didn't rely on it to some degree.
When you're like looking back, what's the worst piece of advice, the best piece of advice you've given? If you were to speak to your younger self and say that was terrible advice, this is amazing advice, what would you say?
Best piece of advice, as much as it's, people say a lot about like, you know, just be in the studio and make. That's good advice, but I think conversely, throw yourself into everything. Say yes, initially anyway, yes to everything. I was run off my feet the first year I was doing shows because I said yes to things I shouldn't have said yes to. But I'm in a position now where I know the types of things I would never do again. Really grateful for that. Worst piece of advice I was given is I had a collector call me after I hadn't done a solo show, but like a solo presentation at the Force Project in 2023, so it wasn't that long ago. And a collector called me going, I don't really know about all of this like lesbian stuff. Like maybe you should kind of keep that to yourself. And I just remember sitting on the phone going, this is like crazy. Like, because she owned some of my work and was genuinely concerned about, to me, what sounded like my work as a financial object. But in that, sometime after I realized it doesn't really matter because the work I make is for me, and there might be a day where collectors hate it, but it's not for them, it's for me. I would be making this regardless of whether other people approved of it. I need to make it, so it will exist. And I think realizing that the priority with making work is what challenges me, or what the work needs, and not the opinions of others.
So listen to yourself more, rather.
Yeah.
And do you feel that you've had any kind of mentor along the way that's guided you or helped you in your journey?
I wouldn't say one concrete person. I've actually been really fortunate because at different points I've had a lot of people around me. There's definitely, like, my partner has a massive impact on my practice. Like, generally when I'm feeling really insecure about something, because the length of time we've been together, that was before I even started having a practice, is sort of like an anchor that I found really necessary, because I think most artists will say there's always someone saying you just have to keep going, because it can be very isolating career path. Whereas I've had some incredible tutors as well, but I can't say there's just one person.
Do you know if that there was ever like a kind of light bulb moment when you were discovering your practice that you mentioned?
Caroline List of the paint department at CSM, absolute legend. She gave this lecture and was talking about Sigma Polk, and for the longest time I'd been like, photography doesn't, at the time I was working with photographs, I was like, it doesn't have this body. We always see it as the image and it's so representational and people are seeking out a subject. It's always, oh, that's a photo of so-and-so. It's never the photograph as an artwork. They're always these separate things, but I wanted it to have this tactility that I couldn't communicate, and I was working with like liquid emulsion, which develops the same way paper would on all these surfaces. Wasn't clicking. Sigma Polk has the series of polyester works from the 1970s, which are screen printed. That was it. I saw it and I was like, there is a translucency in a body and a consideration for frame, and it's technically painting, but it's printing, but it's photography, and it's existing as this object, and it's bringing all these ideas together. And that was it. I understood what he could articulate something visually that I couldn't say in words or draw, like it didn't exist as a thing. Certainly that, and also the realization that I didn't have to have just because I was thinking about things didn't mean they would be visible in the work. It was a really hard tutorial I had where my tutor Dan at the time was saying, Eva, just because you're thinking about it doesn't mean it's there. And that's really true. You have to give the work time for it to take on those references.
If you were dreaming a little bit and looking forward, you just mentioned the Sigma Polka. Do you think that if you could have an exhibition with anyone, living or dead, would it be him, or do you think it would be someone else?
I feel like I would have to make some really cracking work before then. It would matter so much. Diana Molson, I would love to do a show with, probably Sigma Polk as well, and Merlin James or Ian Keir. That would be, you know who, Jessie Darling as well. I would love to do a show with Jessie Darling. I feel like I would have to really step it up. Being around work like that, I just want to do better. I think there's something when you're around artists that give you that feeling, that energy. That is the only time where I see other work. I'm like, there is more to be done. There's more work here. That's awesome.
Yeah. And if that show, this dream show of yours, that could be anywhere in the world, of any place. It doesn't have to be a gallery space.
Yeah.
Where do you think you'd want that to be?
I feel like an aeroplane hangar would be phenomenal, or Hayward Gallery, or there's something crazy. Like in a perfect, I think it would be incredible to have it in the International Space Station. I hate the idea of getting there, but I just think it'd be amazing to have work shown in the International Space Station.
And then when you're thinking about the future for yourself and hopes for yourself, what do you see? What do you feel?
I think just having time in the studio is a privilege, and if I am old and still having time in the studio, I would hope that I'm still grateful with that. Ideally, someone else would answer my emails. I hate answering emails. If there's opportunities that provide me to make good work and for it to be better, and if I get to a point in my career where I have made good work and it's still challenging me and I have a space to make that work in, I will have done it. I just want to make the work, and it has to be better. That's sort of where I'm at.